Now, I don't know whether you did or didn't know, you may have seen in the press and the news that last week was Anti-Bullying Week, and the theme of Anti-Bullying Week this year was safety in cyberspace. And Alison O'Brien is with us this morning from the Anti-Bullying campaign, Anti-Bullying Alliance even. Alison, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you.
Good morning. Now, you actually founded the charity itself, didn't you?
Back in 2002.
So it's been running for an awful long time. What inspired you to feel that there was a niche that needed to be filled and there was something that really needed to be done?
Probably from my work as a head teacher and a teacher, working with children who are either bullies or victims, and also supporting a lot of parents. When I worked for the NSPCC as an education advisor, I took the lead on anti-bullying across England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and I found that there were loads of organisations across the country, more than you would ever imagine, doing work in this area, but they weren't talking to each other, so nobody was finding out what others were doing, so the information wasn't being shared.
Almost like a lack of communication, really.
That's right, yeah. And there's such a wealth of experience and expertise, and they needed to be pulled together in some kind of forum or alliance.
It's a great idea, isn't it? Because of course, generation after generation after generation, not much changes essentially, does it? Other than at the moment what we're seeing, and of course the theme of last week's Focus Week was technology. That's changed a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's the prevalence of technology and young people's desire to have the latest technology that has brought about the increase in that particular form of bullying. Generally speaking, the statistics are the same, research would tell us, but because of the use of technology, cyberbullying with 7 different types is very prevalent with young people.
Now, when we talk about cyberbullying, we're not just talking about through the internet, are we? There's a whole host of ways, isn't there, that people can actually be targeted?
Actually, text messaging is still the most prevalent form of cyberbullying. You know, sending either abusive text messages or taking horrible photos of somebody else and sending them with your mobile phone, but also social networking sites becoming very, very high on the list now.
Do you think it's because the bullies themselves can almost hide behind a mask? It's not face to face, and it's perhaps easier for somebody to send an abusive text message, but they perhaps might not have the confidence to say to somebody in person, but it's very, very easy to hide behind that shield, isn't it? And then the bullying can just get worse and worse.
It can, and for the victim, of course, it's 24/7. If you are bullied physically, there is maybe an escape route sometime. You know, you're bullied at school, you can go to your bedroom, you can shut the door, you're there and you feel relatively safe. But if you are in your bedroom and an email comes from on the computer or a message comes through on your mobile phone, there is no escape. So it is much scarier in some ways, but because it's coming through on emails or the phone, a lot of people see it as less threatening and less serious, which it isn't. The
bullies themselves may actually feel that they're not doing something quite as bad because they're not actually touching you, they're not actually in front of you. Yeah. I myself actually, when I was 15 I think it was, and text messaging was sort of just up on, Facebook didn't exist, but I was a victim of something similar, and it was girls that I knew at school. Now, they would never say anything to me when we were at school. They were absolutely lovely, but the minute that it could be done through a phone, I was harassed through text messages. And I don't think they even, to this day, saw how bad it was and how isolated I felt, because they didn't class it as bullying because it was only a text message and they weren't actually doing anything face to face. And it can be incredibly isolating for the victims, can't it?
Extremely. And what young people don't realise, and they need to understand, is that, for example, if you are the bully and you take a nasty photo of me, I'm the victim, and you forward it to yourself. If you then forward it to someone else, you are not the bystander anymore. Right. You have become the bully or the perpetrator.
So it spirals.
Yes, and apart from the fact that it's maximised, it can go to literally thousands of people. You can't say I've done nothing wrong. You have become the perpetrator, and you could be charged with a criminal offence. And young people, when I tell them this, are really taken aback, and they find it quite scary, but they need to know that.
As the Alliance, is part of your work, I guess, is researching why young people do this. I mean, often we talk about the reason bullies do bully is because of some inadequacy in themselves. Right. What have you found when you've been looking into this type of bullying, as indeed bringing it back to root and branch? What are the reasons that the children are doing it?
It's interesting because I do quite a lot of consultations with children and young people. One of the questions I ask is, why do young people bully? And apart from the answers, or they want to look cool or big, they are very, very clear that the bully does have problems, and those could be for a variety of reasons. It could be, like you say, that they have some inadequacies which they need to overcome. It could be that they've been bullied in the past themselves, or they have been through some trauma in their lives. Maybe they've witnessed domestic violence in their home and they've seen negative role models with parents or other siblings. But it could also be that they honestly don't know what they're doing.
So they could don't know it's wrong themselves almost.
Well, it could be, yeah. But they maybe don't know that what they're doing is wrong. They've never been told that that behaviour is wrong. They've never been encouraged to understand how it feels for the victim. So there are a variety of reasons why young people bully.
If we were to compare bullying in the 70s or 80s to where we are right now, would we be looking at part of the reason why bullying is more widespread, maybe, in its different forms? I mean, there are so many more different forms of bullying right now. Would we say that the way we live and the way parents are forced to maybe pay less attention to their children, do you think that has a big effect on bullying today as opposed to the past?
It could be, because parents are at work more nowadays. I would say that probably bullying has spread more into the community, affecting children and young people across all settings, not just schools, because of the increased use in technology. And we found that out from research. Research would also say that the statistics show there is no increase in bullying in general.
Right.
It's still the same numbers. If there's any good news, I would say that it's more children and young people know that it's wrong, and that they are therefore more enabled to speak out.
Is it easier to speak out now, do you think?
Not necessarily. With cyberbullying and homophobic bullying, very, very few young people speak out.
It must be quite difficult for the parents as well, because they're torn, aren't they? Children these days want the latest technology, and they'll nag and nag and nag and say, all my friends have it. So parents obviously want to give into that pressure, but then on the same token, there's a lack of control there. If the children have that access to that technology, it's harder to censor what they do and do not do, and it must be very difficult for them to know what's the right thing to do. What's the advice of the parents?
Well, I'll give 2 examples from a school I was in last week. I worked with a primary school in the Oldham area on looking at, obviously, cyberbullying. I found out that one girl in year 5, so she was 9 or 10, had had a mobile phone since she was 6. When I worked with year 6 children, so they were 10 or 11, there was a girl in that class who was on 12 social networking sites.
Goodness.
And,
at the age of 9 or 10?
Yes.
And
That's
with older siblings as well, isn't it? It's that rivalry, it's that catching up, and oh, she's got it, so I want it, and it gets worse. As
parents, I'm a parent and a grandma. I don't want to say to my children, no, you can't have the latest in technology. But so what I would say is, you need to be monitoring and moderating what goes on, but also working with your child on looking at, yes, these are the benefits, but what are the risks as well? Identify those risks and work to minimise those in order to keep your child safe.
Alison, how can people access your services and the services of the Alliance? Via the internet, I take it? Again, technology. But
they can go into www.antibullyingalliance.org. They can contact me via the Alliance, or I am contactable on my mobile phone, which you can give out to.
And just one final word to children at home and young people who might be being bullied. What would you like to say to those today?
If you are being bullied, it's not your fault at all. It's not your fault, but you may need help to stop it. So please do tell someone.
Thank you
Alison
very much,
O'Brien,
Alison.
thank you so much for your company this morning. Alison's from the Anti Bullying Alliance, and we'll have all the details on our own website.